Pregnant women burned to death, several injured in ghastly bus accident in Oyo State. Coalition of northern groups orders Fulani herdsmen to leave the south. In international news, U.S. House of Representatives votes to condemn Trump for his racist rant on 4 minority congresswomen. And in sport, Nigeria head coach says Super Eagles 2-1 loss to Algeria, not a shame.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatoji. A middle-aged pregnant woman was burnt to death and several others injured on Tuesday in a fatal road accident at Omiadio on the Bado-Abeokuta Expressway. The injured were trapped in the commercial bus along the one-lane expressway. Eyewitnesses say the commercial bus had developed a mechanical problem when its shaft pulled off. The driver lost control and rammed into a ditch after somersaulting several times. As the passengers were struggling to free themselves from the wrecked bus, eyewitnesses said it went up in flames and trapped them. While dozens of sympathizers tried to rescue the victims, the pregnant woman who was said to have sat in the front became unconscious and could not escape from the inferno. A team of police officers from the Apata Ibadan unit of the Federal Road Safety Corps and police officers from the traffic section of the Omiadio Ibadan Division Police Station were said to have assisted in evacuating victims from the deep valley into which the bus had plunged. One person has been confirmed dead and many injured on Tuesday in a communal tussle in Ondo State over land ownership. It was reported that crisis started brewing between the people of Araromi, Obu community in Odigbo local government area, and their Ikale neighbor in Oketepupa local government area of the state, when an Ondo State High Court in Akure declared Ikale community as the real owners of the land. Sources say fights broke out when farmers of Araromi, Obu community were prevented by their Ikale neighbors from going to the farm in the early hours of Tuesday. One person was found dead and 6 confirmed to have sustained serious injuries during the attack. Some houses were also reported to have been razed. Chairman Araromi Obu Development Committee, Bisoye Monebi, condemned the invasion, saying the Ikale people cut it away from farm produce and chased people from their farms. He stated that the development had almost snowballed into a full-blown communal clash, which was prevented by quick intervention of security operatives. The coalition of northern groups says it no longer believes the federal government is sincere in executing any positive initiative towards resolving the Fulani herdsmen problems in the country. The coalition also noted that the government has shown no encouraging concern for the dilemma of the Fulani whom it says have been attacked in various states. CNG spokesman Abdulaziz Suleiman said when the group visited the chairman, Northern Elders Forum, Professor Ango Abdullahi, that the group finds it difficult to trust the government. He accused the current government of failing to execute any positive initiative for the past 4 years. The coalition then advised the leadership of the Northern Elders Forum to consider calling on the Fulani to leave the south and relocate to their various states in the north to ensure their safety. The former Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Chief Emeka Anyoko, has urged President Muhammadu Buhari and the National Assembly to take urgent steps to tackle the present security situation in Nigeria. He says such steps will prevent the country from drifting into anarchy. Anyoko spoke in Abuja on Tuesday at the launching of a book titled Daddy, the Man, the Legend by Dilibe Onyema, in honor of a former judicial icon, Justice Daddy Onyema. He pointed out that emerging scenarios in the land were ominous signs that needed to be checked without further delay. Anyoko said his message to President Buhari and the National Assembly was two-faced. First, that Nigeria is on the brink, and that Nigeria's foremost national challenge is the management of the country's diversity. Second, the adequate powers should be delegated to all federating units so they can handle their internal security and socio-economic development. A Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, has dissociated itself from the visit by some of its leaders to the Commonwealth of Zion Assembly, COZA. The pastors were led by the North Central Chairman, Reverend Israel Akonji. The group visited COZA Group in Abuja and promised its embattled founder and senior pastor, Biodun Fatoyinbo, a Christian body will stand by him. Fatoyinbo is accused of rape by Busola Dakolo, wife of a Nigerian popular artist, Timi Dakolo. A statement signed on Tuesday by CAN's National Director of Legal and Public Affairs, Evangelist Barrister Kwamko Samuel Wandep, said the pastors who visited COZA Church were on their own, and that the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria had set up a panel to investigate the rape allegation against Pastor Fatoyinbo. He said CAN did not approve the group's visit. The statement also says the Christian Association of Nigeria would never support any act of immorality from whatever quarter. President Muhammadu Buhari has sent a condolence message to the families of victims of the collapsed building in Jos Plateau State. Figures released by the National Emergency Management Agency show that 12 persons have died in the collapsed three-story building. President Buhari said in a statement he was greatly shocked by the unfortunate loss of lives and wished those injured quick recovery. Also sympathizing with the government and people of Plateau State is Benue State Governor Samuel Otom, who described the incident as quite painful and unfortunate. He said the rate at which buildings have been collapsing in parts of the country calls for worry and deserves to be urgently addressed to prevent the loss of more lives. Coming up, African stories. Refugees fleeing conflicts in DR Congo flood Uganda. And later, international news. U.S. House of Representatives votes to condemn President Donald Trump for racist attack.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. Aid workers are reporting that Uganda is being flooded by refugees from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. They say armed conflict in the country has more than doubled the numbers of Congolese refugees fleeing armed conflicts to Uganda since June to about 300 per day. Fighting over land, mineral wealth and politics has raged in eastern Congo for more than 2 decades. Uganda works with the UN Refugee Agency, and that's UNHCR, to register and transport new arrivals to camps already hosting more than 1 million refugees, 350,000 of them from the DRC. United Nations Children's Fund says the current Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo is affecting more children than normal. The organization says children represent nearly 1/3 of current total cases compared to about 20% in previous outbreaks. The World Health Organization reports more than 2,500 cases of Ebola in eastern Congo, including nearly 1,700 deaths. The UN Children's Fund says at least 750 of those cases are children. UNICEF says children under age 5 are especially hard hit and account for 40% of infections, and that an exceptionally high number of children are succumbing to the virus. It was only in January that Zimbabwe raised fuel prices. The motoring public's reaction to that turned deadly. Now the country has done it again, raising prices by a further 16%. What could the reaction be this time? And reporter Faraya Wakutuya has the answer.
Supplies have improved, but the headache for motorists now is forking out more for a litre of petrol or diesel, both of which went up over the weekend. Government says these prices are still the lowest in the region, but that's little comfort to hard-pressed Zimbabweans already contending with galloping inflation, now at 176%, a 10-year high.
We are in July, and this is the third time. This is the third time so far that it's like fuel has gone up, and no increment. No increment. I want to emphasize the point. No increment has been offered to workers. You find funeral policies, everything has gone up, deducting from the little that people are getting. And, we are left with nothing, virtually nothing.
Wage negotiations between civil servants and government are deadlocked.
It has to have some meaning to what happens to salary increases as well, because that basket is filled with the basic things that a family needs to survive. So if we don't go around 800, 900 and 1,000, and I know there are still proponents out there who think that much is too little.
The government claims prices will begin to come down by October as the impact of stabilizing reforms kick in. But not everyone here is convinced.
We're not sure where we're going as a nation. All we know is that the situation right now is very difficult. We're suffering and hoping that things will improve, but nothing is changing.
President Emmerson Mnangagwa has called for patience in the face of the growing frustration, which has dented hopes some here had that he could quickly turn around the fortunes of an economy that had been in decline for nearly 2 decades.
Activists are calling on Sudan's military and opposition leaders to open the country's political process to women when the sides begin to implement their recent power-sharing deal. Women say they have been marginalized and denied a chance to participate in public affairs, especially during the 30-year regime of former President Omar al-Bashir. Women's rights activist Mana al-Bashir, who helped mobilize women during the protest that led to last week's power-sharing deal, says now is the time for women to speak up for their rights. The proposed power-sharing deal between the Transitional Military Council and the opposition stipulates that women should hold at least 40% of the country's national legislative seats. Opposition and military leaders say more than a week ago that they agreed to a civilian-led government. That agreement was signed on Tuesday. When we return, international news. U.S. House of Representatives votes to condemn President Donald Trump for racist attack. And later, sport. Ghana Raw says Super Eagles 2-1 loss to Algeria, not a shame.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and Foreign News. The House voted on Tuesday to condemn as racist President Trump's attacks against 4 congresswomen of color. It's been 100 years since the House has passed such a measure. This is aimed at rebuking the president, and it's passed after one of the most polarizing exchanges on the House floor in recent. The House voted on 4 Republicans and 1 recently converted independent broke with their party to 4 Republicans. The House resolution passed by a vote of 240 to 187. The resolution strongly rebuked President Donald Trump for his racist comments. Lawmakers say his racist rants have legitimized and increased fear and hatred of new Americans and people of color. Trump tweeted on Sunday that 4 minority congresswomen who had been critical of his harsh immigration policy should go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested countries from which they came. 3 of the 4 lawmakers were actually born in the United States, while the 4th, a Somali refugee, immigrated to the U.S. when she was young. And still in the U.S., President Trump says the United States will cancel Turkey's purchase of more than 100 F-35 fighter jets because of its acquisition of a Russian anti-missile defense system. Trump repeated his contention that Turkey, a NATO ally, was forced to meet its defense needs by buying the Russian S-400 system because the Obama administration would not sell it the American-made Patriot system. State Department spokeswoman Morgan Ortagus says Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Trump were closely reviewing the sanctions legislation and will make a decision based on what they are required to do on the U.S. law. The law outlines 12 economic and other sanctions from which the president must choose at least 5. It is unlikely that Turkey would be eligible for a national security waiver contained in the legislation, which requires a recipient country to demonstrably downgrading its security relationship with Russia rather than enhancing it. Still in America, the United States has announced sanctions on Myanmar's military commander-in-chief Min Aung Hlaing and 3 other military leaders for their role in the ethnic cleansing of the Rohingya minority. The State Department says it took action after finding credible evidence they were involved in the violence 2 years ago that led to at least 740,000 Rohingya to flee across the border to Bangladesh. With this announcement, the United States became the first government to publicly take action with respect to the most senior leadership of the Burmese military. Also sanctions were Deputy Commander-in-Chief So Win, Brigadier General Tan Hu, and Brigadier General Hong Hong, as well as the families of all 4 officers. The International Court of Justice says it is ready to deliver its verdict on Wednesday in a case regarding an alleged Indian spy who was captured by Pakistani security forces and subsequently sentenced to death in 2017. Kubhushan Jadvad, a serving officer in the Indian Navy, was arrested in March 2016 in Mashakel town, a few miles from the Iranian border. The military says it was using the Muslim name Hussein Mubarak Patel. Officials accused Jadvad of running a spy network for India's research and analysis wing of its intelligence agency from the Iranian port of Chabahar. Jadvad was later tried by a military court that sentenced him to death in April 2017 on espionage and terrorism charges. The military reveals Jadvad had confessed before the court to having been tasked to plan, coordinate and organize sabotage activities aimed to destabilize and wage war against Pakistan. Cuba has unveiled its first new passenger trains built by China. It's part of a plan to overhaul the island's rail system that dates back to the 1830s. Reporter Luis Chinrijo went on a ride in Havana.
The new train service has been welcomed by those who travel long distances on the island, and passengers are expected to benefit from lower fares and higher train frequencies.
This is a magnificent option because it helps move a large number of passengers on its trip throughout the country.
The new trains will carry over 700 passengers each and travel across the island while making stops along the way in different cities. It is considered the cheapest form of long-distance transportation. A round-trip ticket from Havana to Guantanamo starts at 200 Cuban pesos or $8. This is the first import of new equipment since the 1970s, and it is part of the government's plan to overhaul its deteriorated rail system by the end of 2030. The new trains will be pulled by locomotives that were recently revamped at local repair plants until new ones are imported.
This is the first impact on train passenger transportation in our country, with faster departure frequency and more comfortable wagons, which will allow us to move about 1 million passengers next year.
This is one of the 240 passenger cars to come from China in order to boost the overhaul of the Cuban railroad sector. Each 72-seat wagon offers onboard services and great comfort, with air conditioning systems or fans, reclining and rotating seats, bathrooms, cold drinking water, and catering services. The new service meets passenger demands for rail improvements after suffering from lack of maintenance and new equipment.
This is something outstanding, which we've expected for a long time, since this really improves transportation. The people were waiting for this service, which is very good.
The new blue train has arrived at the western province of Matanzas to pick more passengers during a brief stopover and will now keep going on its route towards an improved Cuban railroad system future.
Still to come, sports. Ghana Raw says Super Eagles 2-1 loss to Algeria, not a shame. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News in Sport. Niger Super Eagles head coach Ghana Raw has insisted that his side's 2-1 AFCON semi-final loss to Algeria was not a shame. The German tactician explained that the statistics after the encounter were even better for the Super Eagles than the Desert Foxes. Raw says the Super Eagles had 11 shots on goal and had better possession of the ball. Guinea and Cameroon have sacked their country's football coaches. Guinea's coach Paul Put was sacked on Tuesday after the team's last 16 exits at the African Cup of Nations in Egypt. Put was appointed in March last year. He led Burkina Faso to the Cup of Nations final in 2013 before losing 1-0 to Nigeria. Paul Put was coach of the Gambian national team between 2008 and 2011. The indomitable Lions also parted ways with their head coach more than a week after being defeated by Nigeria. Cameroon's Clarence Tendif was sacked because of their poor AFCON outing, where they were knocked out by Nigeria in the round of 16. That is any news this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit the website annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.